We're going to go straight into
One,
it.
two,
Absolutely.
three,
Well,
four.
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Season Ticket Holders. I'm your host, Dane Lillingston, and I have another very special guest with me today. She is the NRL Tonight producer, just happens to be the highest rating program on Fox Sports News. She's a friend of mine, and she's also a Cronulla Sharks tragic, but we won't hold that against her. Lou Abihanna, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Now, Lou, we obviously work very close together. Maybe just to start off with, if you want to just tell people what you do, because you are the producer of NRL Tonight. Like I said, that is the main NRL program on Fox Sports News. But you tell us just everything about what you do.
NRL Tonight, it's sort of a whirlwind. Each day is very different, and it's so wild to think that because it's the same half an hour program every single day. But every day is genuinely so different. So, a Monday is unpacking everything that happened from the weekend, all of the news that's still coming out today, and then you've got mammoth teams list Tuesdays. And I'll have everyone know media does not get any earlier access than the public. So it all drops at 4 p.m. for us as well, which
They
is
think they think we do.
we do not. So it's a mad dash from 4 till 6 when we're then on air to try and get all of our team's Tuesday stuff done. And then it sort of gets a little bit, I shouldn't say fun because Mondays and Tuesdays are still just as fun, but you can sort of really start to look into the games Wednesday onwards, and you can get a bit more analytical and get different people's perspectives and whatnot. But yeah, so my sort of role is I have a host. I have 4 hosts across 5 days. So Maddie Russell, Warren Smith, Jake Duke, and Eloise Sawyer. And it's pretty much just working alongside them. They know what they want to talk about, who they want to talk to, what they're going to talk to the guests about, and I've sort of just got to make it look pretty on air. So whether that's getting vision to go along with certain topics, making sure there's straps and whatnot across the screen, but then it's also doing things for the news channel, which I guess is overall who we both work for and also produce content for. So making sure that they've got items that they can run during their news bulletins and whatnot as well.
And you do a fantastic job. And the talent you mentioned there too, all amazing people. Really know their footy, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. They are the best of the best. And honestly, it's sort of crazy though, because NRL Tonight, everyone thinks, 4 different hosts and same show, though it doesn't change too much. But it honestly is wild how across 4 different nights of having these different hosts, it genuinely is so different. And I think that's what makes sort of what we do cool. Like everyone has their own way. We're all journalists at the end of the day, but everyone does it in such a unique style. And it's pretty cool to witness it all.
So make sure everyone tunes in Channel 500, hey?
Yes, and 502 simulcast.
There you go. You heard it here first. Now, Lou, what we did get you on to talk about mainly was, of course, your beloved Cronulla Sharks. Now,
Yeah.
firstly, what I like to do is to get people to go through why you like rugby league, what got you into it, and why do you love the Cronulla Sharks?
Yeah, so it sort of sounds like a cliche, but was truly born into it. My dad is a Lebanese migrant, and funnily enough, the first game that he watched when he came to Australia and they were watching the TV was a Sharks Manly game.
That's
So,
awesome.
Cody K, I could have been on your side, but I'm not. I'm a
Don't be on
Shark.
Cody's side. No one should ever be on Cody's side.
And it sort of just stuck. I think for him, it even started as something that wasn't going to be forever. Oh yeah, we'll cheer for this blue team because that happens to be who is playing right now. And it sort of just stuck. And then we were all born in to be Cronulla fans, and it also just became a way of life. We've always been really heavily involved in the junior footies in our local area, and before you know it, it was Tuesday, Thursday, weekends, and it was all we lived and breathed. It was all I knew. If it wasn't at a local footy park or at a Sharks game somewhere, and all of our friends, all of our family were all involved in the same sort of circle and community. And it sounds so cliche, but it truly sort of ran in my blood. It was all I sort of knew, and it was all that we did, whether it would be at a junior level, whether it was, helping or not helping, but watching the NRL or whatever it was. So it sort of became a passion really young. And again, one of those things that I didn't think would stick, one of those things that I was like, oh, this might just be cool when I'm younger. And, I'll just watch footy because everyone else is watching footy. When I grow up, I'll have different interests and different hobbies. But it really stuck. And before you knew it, it was all I wanted to do. I wanted to watch every game, every weekend. Back in the couple of years ago, it used to be what, Friday to Monday, was it?
Yeah, there was.
So, all the footy, all those days. And then now Thursday to Sunday. But yeah, it really is. I was really born into it.
You've done an amazing job. Look at you now. So very, very good work, Lou. Now, obviously, the Sharks, they've had a pretty solid start to the season as well, and we'll get into that. But in the off season, I suppose the big name was Adam Fanua-Blake coming over from New Zealand, and you'd have to think it seems to have paid dividends. Like on his day, he's just about the best prop in the comp, up there with Payne Haas certainly when he gets it going. But what have you made us of the recruitment and how that's affected you heading into the early parts of this season?
It's so funny. I remember when we got the media release that he wanted out of the Warriors and everything started circling. Where was he going to end up? And the Sharks were never really one of those sides that were circling. Like it was always, the Dragons were pretty high up there, and there were a few other clubs. So I never really thought it was something that was going to come to fruition. And then when I saw the media release that the Sharks had signed him, I was genuinely shocked because as we said, it just wasn't, the Sharks weren't circulating. There was no one sort of throwing their hat in the ring. And I was over the moon. As a fan, I genuinely feel like that was one position that we were lacking. We just needed not even just in terms of size and in terms of size and ability and whatnot, but also just experience. Last year, Dale Finucane had to medically retire. Toby Rudolph's been out injured on and off here and there. So our forward pack, while it might still be big, was really inexperienced.
Yeah.
So I think it's not only his size that he brings, but it's his experience. And I actually heard someone ask him a question. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. And they said to him, "Are you enjoying sort of being the leader of this pack?" And he said, "I don't necessarily need to lead because a lot of these players were reaching a point in their career where they knew that they had to, well, not had to, but wanted to become consistent players. They week in, week out wanted to be that forward that was running off the back fence, making all these meters, tackle breaks, whatever you want to call it. But I think when you have someone who is experienced and is leading the way with that, you're naturally going to want to follow. And I
100%.
think he really has sort of just taken everything up a level within the club.
No, you're 100% right. That was a great answer. He could score a try too, and he really
Yeah.
does lead from the back fence. So 100% right. And it's been awesome to see what he's been able to come in and instill in that forward pack because you're right. It did feel like that was something they were missing, right? Like they had that size, that big body like that.
Yeah, definitely. And you think of like winning a premiership and they often say it's on the back of your halves or it's on the back of some striky fullbacks or whatnot. But those guys can't do anything if your forwards are not going forward. And,
Yeah.
you don't have a big pack winning you that middle ground. So very grateful that he's now a Shark. And I'm sure the Sharks are very grateful that he's a Shark and they're not opposing him anymore.
Get your grand final tickets.
Or he bought.
I love that confidence. Me too as a Bronco, so we'll see. Um, Now, Lou, obviously it has been a good start to the season, and the thing that I was probably most impressed about from the weekend and that win over the Rabbitohs was the that first half attack. Like, I think one of the headlines that I saw was two try contenders for try of the season. Like that attack was absolutely fine. Seemed like the obviously some injury concerns, foot off the pedal a little bit in the second half, but you must be impressed because that attack looks beautiful at some points during that game.
Yeah, and I also think it shows, I think it's great to see the specky stuff, and I think that's what we all watch the game for. But I think if you strip the specky stuff right back, it also shows a level of confidence for those players to go coast to coast and to, risk those flick passes or that spiral from the sideline. Like that shows confidence within the team. And that is going to go so long into winning a premiership. But yeah, for ages, our attack has often been clunky for lack of a better word.
Hmm.
So yeah, you do take a lot of confidence seeing them being able to score tries like that because often our tries can be really boring. It can be someone just plowing over. It could be Nakora running off a great line. It can be a bomb and a catch, from Mulatalo. But to see tries like that, yeah, it definitely shows some good confidence.
Yeah, what was the one? I forgot who finished it off in the end. Was it Kennedy? But that one down the left-hand side, and
Yeah,
Metallo made that break, got it back, just all that passing, the whole sequence. If you haven't seen it, go and watch that try. But that whole sequence on the weekend was just absolutely beautiful. And as a rugby league fan, you just love to see those types of tries. And if they're going to keep producing that this year, must watch Sharks.
definitely, 100%.
And now look, now that of course happens, and we always talk about it. We know in rugby league, it's from the halves, and an interesting combination at the moment with Braden Trindle and Nicho Hynes. Now, Trindle's obviously had some issues off the field last year, in and out, but he's always had the talent. And it seems this year him and Hines have been able to work together in the off season, and they're really just clicking. Even though you'd say maybe there's not a traditional halfback in the two of them, maybe it's two sort of running sixes, but that seems to work. What have you made of this combination so far?
Definitely, you can sort of see it starting to click this year. Like you said, last year was in and out, whether Hynes was in Origin camps, whether Tricky was out with his off-field issues, no matter what it was, there was just no stability in that halves. Whereas this year, they're really starting to gel. I think I agree with you. I think neither of them are traditional halfbacks. Um, Controversially, I'd probably say if you were to put a 6 and a 7 on either of them, I would have them swapped as to what they normally are. So
I totally agree. Yeah.
I'd probably put Hynes in a 6 and have Tricky in the 7. Just because he tends to do a little bit more sort of set to set kicking and whatnot. And you saw it on the weekend when Hynes can run the ball and when he can have that little bit more of a flow. He scored within the first couple of minutes of the game when he had
Looked
that
really good.
opportunity to take on the line. And it sounds, I think, for people who sort of watch rugby league from a just a simple perspective, a number on the back might not sound like much, but I think the boys that are on the field, to have the pressure of a 7 on your back in the rugby league world, it's crazy pressure.
It's like
Like,
the
if
quarterback in the NFL or the
spot
point
on.
guard in basketball. Yeah,
And unfortunately, I think it's one of those positions that if your team is going well, but you're not playing that well, no one's even talking about you. You're
yeah.
still able to fly under the radar. You're going okay. If your team's performing poorly, whether that's on the back of you or whether that's because of your own performances, you're always going to be in the spotlight. Someone's always going to be talking about you. There's going to be a headline. There's going to be all of those things. And I think maybe they have a little bit of less pressure this year. Like there was always that weight on their shoulders of not being able to win a finals match in, I can't remember what the start was, maybe 8 finals or something
I think
like
it was
that.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe a simple win last year of, they still didn't get the win the following week against the Panthers, but just to get that one monkey off the back, maybe that's all they needed. Maybe there was a bit of bonding over in Vegas. Like, we talk about the
Oh,
Vegas hangover and
just
what
a
it could
just a
do.
bit of bonding, you reckon, Lou? Just a tiny bit
Just a tiny bit. I mean, no hotel wrestling or anything like that. We'll
that
leave
we
that
heard of.
to.
That we heard of for sure. Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think you can tell that they're definitely sort of starting to have a really good footy relationship.
100%, you're right. And I guess on saying that too, I know I've spoken previously about the Penrith hangover, but I suppose it can also go the other way too, right? Like the NRL, starting your season like that, doing this really special occasion, you could also bond and get closer instead of maybe partying a little bit too hard. But we'll see. But that leads well into what I was going to talk about next, which is the curious case of our favourite son, Nicho Hynes. Now, Nicho is probably just about the most scrutinized player in the game, and his name comes up time and time again. Of course, Dally M winner 2022. That's put a lot of pressure on his back,
Yeah.
having the 7 as well, like you just said. But there was also the representative stuff where he had a couple shots at the Blues jersey, didn't really seem to stamp it. There was a lot of scrutiny over him during that Origin time. What do you make of this? Or I know we've spoken about in the office a little bit as well, but do you think all this
Yeah.
scrutiny, this constant criticism of where he should play, is he a fullback? Should you move him off the halves? Should he be the goal kick? There's always just seems to be a question of should you do something different with Nicho Hynes? Do you think all of that's warranted?
I think I think what makes it really hard is what we were saying before. When your team's doing really the 7 is always the one who is going to be scrutinized, criticized, whatever we want to say. Unfortunately, I think Nico has never overly iced a moment. And I think until he does, that weight may always be on his shoulders and he may always be that talked about person.
And what does that need to be?
Now,
Does that need to be like a grand final, do you mean? Or what do you?
yeah, it could be a grand final. It could even be stepping up in, we'll use Saturday as an example. I think we got out to a 26-0 lead.
Mhm.
Um, carry that through, carry that through to 40-0, 50-0. Don't take your foot off the pedal type of thing and then let a team get back in the fight a little bit. I mean, I know they came back pretty late and they're probably never going to really be in that match. But just whether it's not on the big stage, icing little moments in a game, good kick pressure, good kicking, to get your team into field position and whatnot. I think until he ices a few of those moments, there's always going to be scrutiny on his back. But I think when it comes to the rep field, it's probably a little bit unfair. Like if we're looking at Origin and whatnot, when did he, that first match he ended up out in the centres, if we're going to back 2 years ago,
And barely played.
barely played. If you're going back to last year, New South Wales were never going to win that match one man down for 70 odd minutes. So I think on the rep
Queenslander.
field, I think on the rep field, he's never had luck go his way per se.
No,
But
that's a good point.
I also know on the footy field, you have to write your own luck. So I think until he can really ice one of those moments, he's always going to be talked about. But again, that just comes with his position. That just comes with being a halfback. You're always going to be the one that's scrutinized. So maybe the Sharks do make that move and, put Tricky in the 7 and leave Hynes in 6, but who knows?
Do you think that maybe he's getting a bit over it? Because I've started to hear some whispers that, Nicho used to be very giving, friendly with his time, with the media, that type of thing, and that perhaps that isn't going to be so much the case anymore, just as far as doing media or even seeing media. Do you think that that is, and I don't think it's showing on the field, but just off the field, do you reckon he is sort of hardening up a little bit? Maybe he's just a little bit over this whole media circus that seems to constantly follow him?
I reckon naturally you would be. I think it's so easy to turn around. We heard him last year a lot talk about how I'm fine. I'm in the best, headspace I've been in a long time. I don't listen to off-field drama and whatnot. And that's great. And I'm sure that you can, when you're in that public figure, turn the switch off on all those things. But I think indirectly you still know that they're there. Whether you're reading the headline or not, I think in the back of your mind, shit, there's a headline about me. Or, someone's talking about me, or the panel are discussing me. I think whether you're openly um sort of seeing it or hearing it, you still know it's there. And you know what? If it's going to help him, selfishly as a Shark supporter, if it's going to help him on the field, I'm all for it. I'm all for him hardening up. And maybe he does need to do that. Maybe he does need to have a bit of a firmer stance on not being, Mr. Nice Guy and just getting what he needs done. Who knows? Maybe that will work for him.
Turn the heel, turn into the bad guy. Why not? It's not a fair point. Why does he have to be the good guy? He does a lot of great stuff off the field, right? In the mental health space, and
Definitely.
it seems to be really involved in the community. And like he's obviously had off-field stuff with his mom and family, and that's all been scrutinized as well. But
Yeah.
he seems to have really, and if we goes back based on what he's done on the field too, based on his last couple of weeks, I mean, it doesn't seem to affect him on the field. So
Yeah.
Nico's the bad guy. There we go.
Let's run with it.
Now, and the other person I want to talk to that's had a really massive influence on this team over the last couple of years is, of course, Craig Fitzgibbon. Now, me going out to coaches press, of course, you've dealt with him as well, but I get to go out to Cronulla, every few weeks, and he seems to be very cool, calm. I love that he sort of comes up, he shakes the hand of the media. Some coaches do that, but definitely not all of them. But I just get a very good feel from Fitzy. He seems to just be that presence, and I'm sure that players feel the same thing. That when they're in the dressing room, someone that you immediately just look up to, respect. It's like almost like a father figure that you want to make proud. That's the sort of the sense that I get that Fitzy might give off. What have you sort of made of him? And obviously, he's sort of got this team to be sort of perennial sort of finals contenders over the last 3 or so years. As a fan, as your job that you get to deal with him at an analysis, what have you made of Fitzgibbon and what he's done with this team?
Definitely agree with you. What we do for work, we deal with a lot of the clubs and people within the club on a daily basis. And the Sharks and Fitzy in whole are one of the best. They're definitely up there. They're so accommodating. They are happy to give us anything that we need. And sometimes at really short notice as well. There are times where we've called them up and been like, can we chat to someone about this story that's just broken? And they're always willing to give us someone. I definitely agree with you. I think you can see that there's a real friendship between Fitzy and the players, and that you're right. It almost, I think to a certain extent, is that father figure, bond.
A good
But it
player,
also
managed people
seems,
person.
yeah, it also seems a bit more just really good mates as well. Like sometimes I get that real vibe that they're actually all just really good mates. But I think that that can be a bit of a double-edged sword at times as well. So um, I think it's great to create that culture, and I think he does a great job at doing that. But then I think on your other hand, do you as a fan, do you sometimes worry that maybe those really hard decisions won't be made? When Hynes wasn't performing his best last year, would he get a stint in reserve grade just to work on those things and, mentally recover from anything that he might have been, the demons that he might have been facing and anything like that. So I think Fitzy has brought a really good culture to the club, but I think sometimes you worry that then when the players and coaches have these really good relationships, when times are hard, will those really tough decisions be made? I'll never forget the 2016 year, which every Sharks fan has engraved in their memory forever.
Just had to bring it up.
But that first week of finals, we went down to Canberra. I think we had no Wade Graham or no Paul. I think we had no Paul Gallen, and I think Wade Graham failed his HIA really early on in the match. So we were down on troops, down on those key leaders out on the field, and Chad Townsend was having a shocker. Like
Yeah.
one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. And how easy it would have been for Flano to be like, but he's one of our experienced boys. We need him out on the park. Hooked him mid week one final, hooked
Brave.
our halfback,
Very brave.
sat him on the sideline. We ended up winning that match. And, you know, there probably would have been talks if it went the other way. And such a brave decision from Flano, but in that moment he needed to make that. And I'm not denying that Flano still would have had just as good a relationship as Fitzy has with the players. But he also wasn't afraid to make those decisions for the team. So
100%.
sometimes you just worry that when you do have such a strong relationship, are you going to be able to make those tough decisions?
No, no, I totally agree. And obviously, as a Broncos fan, I think we've seen that very clearly with what's just happened with Kevin Walters.
Yeah,
Perfect example of, was he able to make some of the tough calls when he was such a like a buddy figure? Some people say almost like one of the friends, one of the boys, obviously former player himself, just like Fitzy as well.
yeah,
That they get too close, and obviously we saw how that all unfolded at Brisbane. Didn't end well, but I guess as long as you get the results on the field, you're not gonna have to worry about that too much at this stage. But you're right, when it comes to making those tough calls. Will he be able to do it, when the pressure's on, when the heat's on? We'll have to wait and see. The one thing I do love about Fitzy, a story I read a little while ago, and he's into his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And Lou, I think
oh,
I'm also into my BJJ. He's a purple belt,
yes,
that is just behind brown and black. So he's obviously very good at what he does. And I think I read the story that he did it on game days, like every morning, if he could, he would go and have a roll, which is like for people who don't know, you have like a spar, you try and submit each other. So that's very impressive, and that's what I love about him too, because jiu-jitsu teaches you to be very calm, collect,
yeah.
and it's just as much the mental game as it is the physical game. And Lou, you'll be happy to know that I just got my third stripe white belt. Actually, conveniently, it's right here. There you go. So that's actually yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, guys. That's SVG. So yeah, one more to go to a four stripe white belt, then one day maybe blue. So we'll
How
see.
good is that?
Yeah.
Dana loves jiu-jitsu, and there's been times where there have been some accidents pre pretty big days at work. And
Yeah.
and Dana's come to the office with some facial bruising and whatnot, and we've all been a little bit stressed, but we got there.
You can say it, Lou. I had a black eye just before Origin, and I had to wear a lot of foundation and a lot of makeup to cover that up. I think I did a good job. You could
You
tell
did.
there was a little bit of discoloring. Obviously not an expert. You did give me some tips and advice on that too, so I appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
Of course,
Um,
of course.
Now, Lou, when it comes to the Sharks, and we've sort of touched on it just then, but they have obviously been perennial sort of finals the last 3 years, but they just don't seem to be able to make that final step. Obviously, they ran into the Penrith in the prelim last year, bundled out in the first week in 2023, and then 2022 was a pretty heartbreaking one, lost in extra time to the Cowboys, and then went down to South in the semis. Like you said, they had that streak too, where up until last year, wasn't it, that they
Yeah.
finally won. They broke it in the first week of finals, I think. But that's over now. What do you think needs to be done to get you guys to that final hurdle? Because Fitzy's gotten thereabouts, but you haven't been able to make the big dance to the GF just yet.
I think what we spoke, one thing is definitely what we spoke about earlier. The addition of Fanua Blake is going to be seen for rounds to come. And I think that's going to really help because without a middle, without a forward pack, you're not going anywhere. Those specky tries that we spoke about, the halves being able to take control, that's not happening without a forward pack that's taking you forward. Um, but I also think it comes back to another point that we spoke about earlier, and it's a little bit of attitude, like we'll use that Souths game as an example again. You don't want to be 26 nil up and taking the foot off the pedal. Um, and you don't want to be giving teams a chance to get back in the fight and get back in the arm wrestle. And before you know it, it becomes 26-18 and it's game on. That's one try and a 2-point field goal. You
Yeah,
know
that's a
what I
good
mean?
point.
And you only need 90 seconds to be able to do all those three things in a game of football these days. It's so fast paced. So I think it can be that little bit of an attitude thing. I think it's just not taking the foot off the pedal and not being satisfied until you are the best of the best. Until you're beating Penrith twice in a regular season during finals footy and potentially in a grand final, or until you're up there with the Melbourne Storms and whatnot, until your club is being spoken about, I should say, in that same light as, the teams that we often speak about in the office and that are always, up there in the top four, no matter what has happened during their year. I think until you're at that level, you're always going to find it hard to make the big dance. And finals footy is it can be so sort of hot and cold. Like, it could be the Panthers taking on the Bulldogs, and you still don't know what's going to happen on that day.
That's true.
Like it's one of the it's one of those games, part of me, that it's just anything can happen on the day. But if you have the right attitude, you can really control, I think, what goes in your favor and what doesn't.
So Lou wants blood, everyone. She wants 50-0 wins and just bloodbath the Sharks Park.
That's what I
Uh,
want.
now I was going to get into it too. What the hell is happening with the stadium, Lou? I know we've had this chat before in the office, but I did get to go out there, I think 2 years ago now, to watch the Broncos Sharks game. I was on one of the hills. It was really nice atmosphere there. It's a nice little community venue. It's also just about the ugliest venue in the NRL. I know you're going to push back on me with that, but it is just about the ugliest venue in the NRL. The Leagues Club's still in sort of limbo. The apartment block's just sitting up there. And it's also got about, I think, just the smallest capacity. I think you guys averaged about 14 or 14 and a half
Yeah,
last year. That's the lowest in the NRL behind the Dragons and Tigers. That's not obviously the clubs for anything, but that's just the stadium that they have to deal with.
yeah.
What's going on there?
Honestly, in terms of the development and whatnot, I have no idea. I mean, there are rumors that speculate that hands of developers have changed multiple times since it started. COVID hit, that wouldn't have helped. So in terms of the actual structure, I don't think anyone really knows what's happening. I think as a fan, it is a little bit disappointing. So as a season ticket holder, we moved to Cogra for, I can't remember if it was 2 years or 3 years. I'll say two. But we moved to Cogra for 2 years, and I think the thought was we were going to come back and the stadium was going to be revamped, the Leagues Club was going to be done, everything was going to be done. And then that first match where we went back, we were like, oh, there's a literal construction site opposite where we sit, and I sit in the ET upper, so right sort of above the tunnel where the players run out. So
Gold
I'm
class?
looking right, gold class, 100%. Best of the best, no.
Yeah, only for you, Lou.
So
Only expect that as well. Yeah.
so we sort of look directly at that Peter Burns stand and where all that construction is happening. And you're right. I selfishly love Shark Park.
Yeah.
And that can probably be because it's where I grew up. I've watched so many games of footy there. I
It's your
remember
home. It's your
it's
home
your
as a
yeah,
club.
it's home. I remember before I even had a season ticket or was old enough to have a season ticket. I think if you were under five or whatnot, you used to get in for free, and I used to go and sit on my dad's lap for the entire match. So literally have grown up at Shark Park, but I definitely think it's disappointing to know. I mean, those stats you read out are pretty huge. To think that just because of a capacity, we're the lowest fan base that you can fit in a match, that's pretty disheartening. But it's definitely something you want fixed. However,
Here we
I
go.
will take that stadium over Brookvale
No, no,
day of the
no,
week.
no, no, no. Brookie is a beautiful venue. It looks good on TV as well. And I've been there plenty of times for training. And even watching, to be honest, watching it on TV yesterday. I don't know if you watched the game, but
Yeah.
it looks good on TV, Brookie. And I know it's a similar, I guess that's probably the closest comparison you're sort of going to
Yeah, I
get
think so.
in the NRL. But Brookie's amazing. I'll go there later this year for the Broncos Manly game, and
Okay.
I'll give you a full report at the end. But right now, Brookie's definitely better.
Ooh. Okay. We'll have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, yeah, I'll cop it in the office, guys. Don't worry.
We'll have to agree to disagree.
We'll see. Look, I do hope, yeah, and look, I've sort of done a little bit of prodding as well, but it does seem to be a little bit in limbo. So it would be nice to see that there could at just at least be some sort of conclusion for fans, because like
Yeah.
obviously you don't want to see, and with the NRL, I think the NRL had just the highest averaging crowds ever last year.
Yeah.
So if they're going to continue on that path, they're lagging behind. The NRL should really step in, I would say, and try and get this sorted, because it would be nice to get that to, few thousand more, or at least have the precinct sort of completed so it doesn't look like it's an ongoing construction site. Like
Yeah,
for
and I also think fixing little things like there's no, I don't know, I even know when we have to go for presses and whatnot, how difficult parking is
there's
when there's no one there.
there's barely
So
none.
imagine on a
Yeah.
game day, like, on Saturday, there were three games back to back. So I think they had Fleg, Cup, and NRL all on back to back. You have to get there at like 10 a.m. for a 3 p.m. game if you want parking anywhere near there. And as much as, yes, there is public transport, that's also not quite close enough. So if you're thinking of your fan base who have to travel, or even the elderly, you're sometimes losing out on them just because of accessibility.
100%. Yeah.
So it's even little things like that. And I think I agree with you. I think the NRL should step in, because these suburban grounds are the best. There's nothing better than Sunday Arvo footy, a packed suburban ground, whether you're talking Cogra, Shark Park. we'll say it, Brookvale,
Yeah,
anywhere
Brookie.
else. Um, Packed suburban crowds are the best, you know. So you would want the NRL to try and step in and get it sorted because, yeah, it doesn't look the best, but it also sometimes isn't very feasible as well on many other aspects.
You know what I love too as a rugby league fan? The point of difference. I know there's always going to be a debate between NRL and AFL, and it's awesome that AFL can get crowds and they have that in that culture that they can get,
Yeah.
80 to 100,000 at the MCG for their big derbies. But the thing that I think separates the NRL and that I love about the footy is that they do have these little suburban grounds, which the
Yeah.
AFL just doesn't have. Not that it has to be a competition, but it's just a nice point of difference between the two codes that you do have your Brookvales and your Shark Parts, and you do see them packed with 15,000 passionate fans and their flags and their scarves and the colour that comes out of watching those ones because they're the hardcores. You see the scenes
Yeah.
at Belmore every year, and it's just amazing that what they do and the streets afterwards, and that's that little tribalism that rugby league has that not a lot of other sports have, and that's the beauty that they can keep and gives them a point of difference. And as a rugby league fan, I love seeing that. So, and even though
100%.
even though my home ground Suncorp, which we have Caxton Street, but we don't have that little thing. But coming to Sydney, 3 years ago and seeing how Sydney treats rugby league and getting my first opportunity to go to Leichhardt, and that's what I think makes NRL beautiful to have those sort of opportunities to have those little suburban grounds because they're awesome. They're awesome to go to. They might have shitty toilets and expensive beer and all that type of stuff, but they're awesome venues to go to. I remember going to Leichhardt last year against the Titans in the pouring rain and people sliding down the mud. It's just
Yeah.
it's a cool thing that rugby league has, right? That other codes that don't really have.
Yeah, and I also think you'll find that there are certain grounds that some fans will only go to. Like you will find that there are Manly fans who only go to the footy when it's on at Brookvale. There are
Yeah.
Sharks fans who only go to the footy when it's at Shark Park. And you can probably say the same for a whole cohort of teams, and some naturally it happens, like the interstate teams and whatnot, they can't always travel, and same for the Sydney based fans, they can't always travel interstate. But if you're looking, say, just the state that your team is based in, sometimes fans are only going to those games at Shark Park, and I can even admit that I sometimes fall guilty of that. There can be a game we'll be playing the Dragons, and Cogger is probably geographically closer to where I live than Shark Park is, and I still won't go to that game.
You just hate the
um,
Dragons.
I hate the Dragons. Nah.
It's true
I
if you
don't
said
think you
it.
I don't think you'd find a Sharks fan that doesn't hate the Dragons.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I hate all the other Queensland teams.
Yeah, see?
Look, Lou, thank you very much. We'll see you in the office very shortly. Talk us just a little bit about when we can catch you, NRL tonight, that type of thing. Give yourself a nice plug.
Yes, NRL tonight. So 5 days a week, Monday through Wednesday, we are 6 p.m. on 500 or 502, so Fox League or Fox Sports News. On Thursdays, we are 5:30 on Fox Sports News, and on Fridays, we sort of kick off the coverage before Friday night footy panels begin at 5 p.m. So we are on at 4:30 on 502 and 500 with all our amazing hosts. We always have heaps of talent on there as well, so that's where you can catch us.
Speaking of that, I'll be doing some night shifts later this year. So I've been
You
told that
will.
I will be making some special guest appearances on NRL tonight too. Is that true, Lou?
That is very true. I do hear you'll be doing some desk chats with us, so keep your eyes peeled, everyone.
Oh wow, can't wait. Tune in. No, look, guys, Lou does an absolutely fantastic job there at Fox Sports News and with NRL tonight. So definitely make sure you tune in. They know their rugby league, and what would you rather watch it at that time? Like you do a really good job, Lou. So thank you very much for all your help, and thank you for being a guest on Season Ticket Holders.
Thank you for having me. And everyone, you can catch Dana on those same channels. So make sure you check him out too, because he's just as amazing.
Oh, thank you very much, Lou. You're too kind. I hope your Sharks go really well. I hope they can finally crack into that grand final this year, and we'll see. I have them in my top four, so we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway,
Fingers crossed.
yes, hopefully Broncos too. Broncos Sharks grand final. We'll take that.
Oh, that will be an interesting Monday in the office after that.
Yeah, Broncos win. All right, Lou. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for listening. Take care. Bye bye.
1, 2.